Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really high-stakes clash happening in Washington that, believe it or not, could shake up the entire global economy. It all boils down to one simple but incredibly powerful question. Should politicians be in control of the money printer? The answer to that could threaten a principle that's kept our financial system stable for decades. And let's just jump right in with the bombshell claim at the very heart of this story. This is coming directly from the head of the U.S. Central Bank, Jerome Powell. And look, he's not just talking about some policy disagreement here, he is alleging a direct political attack. That sets the stage for a showdown like we've never really seen before.
So what exactly does this political attack look like? Well, it's something almost unheard of. The Department of Justice has launched a criminal investigation, not into a person, but into the Federal Reserve itself. You know, the very institution that's supposed to be shielded from exactly this kind of political arm twisting. Now, on paper, the probe is about a $2.5 billion renovation of the Fed's headquarters. But Powell's claim is absolutely explosive. He's saying this is all just payback for refusing to slash interest rates when the president demanded it. And the implications here are so serious that this is no longer just a domestic fight. Central bankers from all over the world have taken the very rare step of publicly backing him up.
Okay, to really get why this is such a huge deal, we need to talk about the one core principle that's being threatened here. It's really the bedrock of modern economics.
And that brings us to this key concept, central bank independence. Think of it like this. You wouldn't want a politician flying a 747 through a storm, right? You want an independent pilot. Well, for almost 50 years, the general agreement has been that politicians shouldn't get to steer the economy just for short-term political points. This independence is what lets the Fed make tough calls, sometimes unpopular ones, like raising interest rates to fight inflation, to make sure the whole economy has a stable landing.
And here's where the conflict really lies. As the former head of the European Central Bank, Jean-Claude Trichet, points out, the Fed was designed to be accountable to Congress. But the fear now is that it's being pushed to become, in his words, an obedient servant of the president. And those are two totally different and frankly incompatible jobs.
And you have to understand, this isn't just some theoretical classroom debate. The threat is seen as so real that financial leaders across Europe are now publicly sounding the alarm. And believe me, they are not holding back. Now, you gotta know central bankers are masters of understatement. I mean, their language is usually incredibly dry and careful. So when a major figure like Jean-Claude Trichet actually repeats the phrase, extremely worrying, that's the diplomatic equivalent of screaming a warning from the rooftops.
So what are they worried about specifically? Well, things like grave consequences for the entire global system, or a permanent jump in global inflation if people stop trusting the Fed. But maybe the most damning comment of all is this comparison, that the United States, the leader of the global economy, is starting to behave like a country with weak and unreliable financial institutions. Ouch.
What makes this whole political pressure cooker so incredibly dangerous is the timing. All of this is happening at a moment when the entire global economy is already on pretty shaky ground.
Just forget all the political drama for 1 second, and just think about this one stark fact. On a global scale, our debt, compared to our economic output, is higher right now than it was right before the 2008 financial crash. And what that means is the entire system is more fragile, more vulnerable to a shock than it was back then.
Trichet puts it very plainly. The world is in a state of great vulnerability, but financial markets are, in his words, way too calm. And that's a really dangerous disconnect, right? It's like the markets are just business as usual, while a central pillar of global stability, the U.S. Fed, is starting to shake.
And this all leads to the final and maybe the most unsettling risk of all, the idea that this isn't just an American problem. The real fear is that we could be watching the start of a dangerous global trend, a kind of political contagion.
Analysts at Citi actually call this the contagion theory, and it plays out kind of like dominoes. So first, one government starts pressuring its central bank for a short-term win, maybe to get cheaper loans right before an election. Politically, that might work for them, but it really hurts the bank's credibility. The real danger, though, is that it creates a playbook, a model that other populist leaders around the world will be really tempted to copy.
And that's exactly why leaders are worried this trend could jump across the Atlantic. I mean, today, the independence of the European Central Bank or the Bank of England feels rock solid. But the warning coming out of the U.S. is crystal clear. Nothing is permanent. These long-held principles can be attacked, and that cherished independence should never, ever be taken for granted.
So all this leaves us with one final and really critical question, because this isn't just some high-level drama between politicians and bankers.
The stability of the financial system affects everyone's savings, our mortgages, the price of milk at the store. So, if the guardians of that stability are compromised for political reasons, who is it that ultimately pays the price?